Okay, so again, this is not the most appropriated place, but we will have to work with it because we need the sun and it's warm and I am sick and tired of being inside of my house, so yeah. Hello beautiful bookworms, my name is Katrina and welcome to my channel, and today I am going to be doing something that I haven't done in very long time, which is an actual tag. And surprise, a tag that I wasn't tagged for, but I still found it really awesome and I decided that I was going to do it, so we will do it. Apologizing already for the noise, but there's a lot of construction outside and I am sort of outside, so sadly I cannot stop the construction. And this is what it is. So I just laid down because it was getting tough on my arms to actually be the way that I was. And I am going to be doing today the Get to Know the Fantasy Reader tag. And this tag was created by Maddie from the Book Pusher, and she said that she took some inspiration from other tags, so I'm just going to leave link her video somewhere, and you can see for yourself the original tag. So what I'm going to be doing is to answer the 10 questions that this tag has without the presence of any books. Just me, this paper, and sun. And we will try and do it the best way that we can. Let's just hope that this goes properly for a video, but I had no ideas to film and I really wanted to give you some content, so this is what we're going to do. If I move around a lot, my floor is really hard and I just, I cannot stay in a position. Whew. Okay, so the first question is, what is your fantasy origin story? Or how you came to read your first fantasy novel? So I don't really remember this very well because I was pretty young. I started reading by myself. I kind of self-taught myself to read, and I think it was at around 4 years old, 3.5, 4, I don't know, it was really early, and it kind of spooked my mom and my dad. And the first sort of fantasy stories that I heard were these sort of sleeping, sorry, it always seems like someone is watching me, but it's these sort of fairy tales for kids to fall asleep, and I don't remember them very well. But if we are saying really original fantasy stories, it all started the day that my mom decided to show me Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone movie, and I absolutely loved that. I was like, what, 10? I don't even know. I was really young when I saw that. And then she was like, do you want to read those books because you read a lot and those books are for kids? And I said, yeah. And so I started reading fantasy through Harry Potter. I mean, I was already reading like those say goodnight fairy tales that parents read to kids or kids read from themselves, but actual fantasy, I think it was through Harry Potter. We all have the same origin story. I mean, people of my age, I don't know, I believe we do. Then the second one is, if you could be the heroine in a fantasy novel, who would be the author, and what's one trope you'd insist be on the story? Ooh. Okay, so first of all, we all know that if someone would write my fantasy story, I would really like I think I would really like Brandon Sanderson to write my fantasy story. His fantasy stories are always amazing, always great, and his magic systems are always the best. And he always has this sort of grips in the magical worlds and these grips on the characters that I really enjoy, and so I would really like to be written by him. But there's a trope I would really like to be in the story, which is enemies to lovers, and I don't really know if he does that trope well. I mean, we have a little bit of that trope, which is not really enemies to lovers, it's more like enemies to friends in Skyward, and I'm not going to say anything else about that for those of you that haven't read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. It's really cool and you should read it, but I don't know if he does enemies to lovers well. I don't want that in my life because I don't want to suffer the way that people do when you have the enemies to lovers tropes, but I would really like to have that in a story in which I would be the hero. I would really enjoy that. And yeah, Sanderson. We can vote for that. So the third one is, what is a fantasy you've read this year that you want more people to read? Okay, so I don't remember if I read this year or the end of last year. I know that I read it with Anna Francesca, and if you're not subbed to Anna Francesca, what are you doing? And I'm going to leave her linked somewhere as well. But I would recommend everyone to read Furyborn, because that was a really cool and intense fantasy book. I mean, I haven't read the second one yet at the time of filming this, and the third one hasn't come out, so... But I think that I will love the second one as well, and I can't wait for the third one to come out. And Furyborn is really cool. It's this story that it's set 1,000 years, I think, I'm not sure, or 100 years or something, into the future. So you have the past, and then you have the present or future, and you have two main characters. Furyborn is by Claire Legrand, by the way, if I haven't told you. And you have two main characters, and there are two girls, and one of them is the Blood Queen, and the other is the Sun Queen, or the Light Queen, or whatever you say that. I have forgotten by now. And so you're following the Blood Queen since she was growing up and getting to know her powers until everything went wrong, and then you're following the Sun Queen since she doesn't know who she is, and knowing who she is, and then what she's going to do with that power, because she's afraid of committing the same mistakes that her ancestor did, and her ancestor is afraid of the power that she has. I don't know, it's really cool, because you see things going wrong and you know it's going to happen, but you have that insight of seeing them developing, and I think that that's so interesting. And the way that the characters are created and developed, and the way that the writing is, and the magic system of it, I don't know, I really love it. And if you haven't read Furyborn yet, I think it's the most sort of recent real fantasy that I really want to recommend to people. So there you have it, it's Furyborn. Then the fourth question is divided in two questions, and they are, what's your favorite fantasy subgenre, and a subgenre that you have not read much from. So starting with the last one, I haven't read a lot of urban fantasy, because it's sort of my least favorite genre of fantasy. I really, really love high fantasy. It's my favorite fantasy subgenre, but I can read other types of fantasy and like them. But urban fantasy, and I know that Harry Potter is sort of your urban fantasy, but you do have a magical world with Diagon Alley and Hogwarts and Hogsmeade and everything that you don't normally have in normal urban fantasies. Like, for instance, I really enjoy the Shadowhunters. It's sort of a guilty pleasure for me. I don't believe that they are well written, but I really enjoy the characters, and I really enjoy the action of the Shadowhunters. But that is so urban fantasy. It's like everything is in New York or London, or that's the subway, sorry, or Los Angeles, and even though I enjoyed it, it's not some sort of place that I'm getting to know, and it's new and invented. It's a place that exists, and I read to escape reality, so that's not really my thing. But I do read urban fantasy because it's part of my favorite genre, which is fantasy, but it's not really my favorite thing. I really love high fantasy. High fantasy is my thing for real. And then I love a little bit of a niche of fantasy, which is horror fantasy, which normally people don't associate horror with fantasy, but horror can and sometimes is fantasy. And yeah, I really like that niche, and I think that more people should read it. And I'm getting really tired of being sitting. Ugh. Hi. Question number 5 is, what is one of your auto-buy fantasy authors? Oh boy. So I can only say one. So I'm going to say Brandon Sanderson, since I want to buy every single thing that is ever written, and I want to read it because he's one of my favorite authors in fantasy. Granted, I haven't read many of these books. I only read the Mistborn series, and I read Skyward. But I think that I'm going to love everything he writes, and I really, really want to buy all of his books. So let's say he's an auto-buy author when I have the money to do so. Question number 6 is, how do you typically find fantasy recommendations? And this one, it depends, because I have two ways of getting my recommendations. One is BookTube and BookTwitter, obviously, because I thank God, I talk with a lot of people here on BookTube and on Book Twitter, and I really enjoy the recommendations that some people that I trust give. And obviously we have people that do videos for new releases, and so I get to know them, and I really don't speak with them because I'm ashamed, but I stalk some authors on Twitter, and I know when their books are coming out, so I know some of that stuff. And then I have a second source, which is my bookish community, which is very small, and it consists of like 3 people, and that bookish community is my boyfriend and 2 of his friends. And basically sometimes I tell them books that are coming out, they tell me books that are coming out, you know. It's just we borrow books and we trade books, and those are like the only people with which I talk about books, and basically they're my dealers. And we talk a lot about releases, and particularly my boyfriend, because he works in a comic book shop, and so he knows when new mangas or new comics are coming out, and so it's easier for me to actually get recommendations for him, because he sees a lot of things and he knows what I enjoy, even though he says he doesn't, because I have a very strange and complex taste. And I tell them it's really not, it's just what I find interesting I read and I normally enjoy. But okay, that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, those are the places where I get my recommendations. In order for you to see my eyes, I am going to answer the next questions without my sunglasses, which is kind of hard because I have really, really clear eyes and this is hurting me. But as I was saying, question 7, upcoming fantasy release you're excited for. Oh boy. Let's all just say it together, okay? We are going to say it together. Doors of Stone by Patrick Rothfuss. If that fucking book comes out in August 2020, I will buy that shit. I will get that shit. I will close myself inside my house. If we're still quarantining, then I will probably have already been inside my house. But if we are not quarantining, I will close myself again inside my house, and I will read The Name of the Wind, The White Man's Fear, and The Doors of Stone all in the same day, and I will love it, okay? That is my most anticipated release, and there is none whatsoever that could compare with that. If that does not come out, then I don't have an anticipated release, because I will be very, very sad. Question number 8 is misconceptions about fantasy you would like to lay to rest. Well, I don't even need to stop to think about this one. I would like people to stop considering fantasy as non-literary. Like, normally, and I'm a person that have a lot of likes and dislikes in the book community, and I love classics, and I love understanding why classics became classics. I understand the difference between something that is written for YA genre and something that has been written years and years ago, normally for adults, and in a type of linguistics that is not like the one that is used today in books. I really love horror. I really love, I don't know, a lot of things. I can love magical realism as well, because I love Haruki Murakami, and normally people say that's a very adult sort of although I don't really classify it like that, but whatever. But I love fantasy, and most of the time when I say my favorite genre is fantasy, we have people that say, oh, so you don't read real books, you like to read like those sorts of stories where there's like magic and stuff. And I say, well, yeah, because I mean, I want to have fun while I read, and I do learn new things every time that I read a fantasy book, and I enjoy myself, which is the most important thing. And knowing about fantasy is also knowing about how times have changed, because we had different sort of fantasies back there than we have right now. And I can still like classics, and I can still like stuff that people think that it's real literature, but I don't classify it that way. I classify it like I enjoy it, and you can read what you enjoy, and you don't need to, oh, I read, I don't know, Anna Karenina, and I'm so important. I mean, I did read Anna Karenina, and I did enjoy immensely Anna Karenina, but that's not what makes me smarter or better than other people that actually don't give a shit about Anna Karenina. You know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean, because I won't shame anyone for their book tastes, and I would really, really enjoy if people stopped shaming fantasy readers because they like fantasy. That's my thing. Okay, we're almost done. So, question 9. If someone had never read a fantasy book before, recommend the first 3 books that come to your mind as places to start. Ooh, that's going to be rough. Okay, so let's pay attention. I've been thinking, and this is rather hard, but I think that places to start could be very different for different people, but I will tell you 3 books that I really think that are easy for people to start. First of all, I would recommend maybe to start with urban fantasy. I know it's not my favorite fantasy genre, but it's easier because it comes from a place that people know, like Earth, you know, and legit countries and places, and then it takes you a little bit further with magic and sort of everything. So for that, I would say maybe Harry Potter or maybe Shadowhunters even, although for me Harry Potter is better, but we all have our tastes. Then I would say if you really enjoy that, then maybe read a V. Schwab book, because they are mostly fantasy, but she has middle grade, she has adult, and she has young adult, and you can start in many different places. You can still be a little bit grounded in what respects to more basic and easier magic systems, things that you can understand, and things that are very interesting to any genre, because she has sort of supervillains kind of books, she has paranormal, and she has magic and normal fantasy. I don't know, I think V. Schwab, any of her books could be a good middle in between sort of thing. And then I would say after that you could read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson or The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, because they are sort of in the same, I have to reread them, but they're sort of in the same category for me, which is it's good for beginners, but because they are bigger and they envelop you more, so they have a more difficult and specific magic system that has a lot of rules and is coordinated, and because it has a lot of religion and politics and other situations that maybe are not so easy for people to understand and grip right in the first moment, and because they're very big, and for people that are not used to high fantasy and big books in general, they can be very off-put by some of those. I would say read those in third place. So first start with the most known series like Harry Potter, Shadowhunters, something easier. Then go to V. Schwab. I believe it's a good stand, a good second place to anyone to get gripped on it. And then get to Brandon Sanderson and Patrick Rothfuss, because they're not very hard to read, but it demands a little bit more of concentration and already understanding some possibilities of the magic systems and the fantasy sort of genre. So I didn't recommend books, I recommended authors, but I mean, I think I can do that. If I can't, maybe Maddie will come for me. I don't know, I hope not, because I really enjoy her, but I don't know. And 10th and last one is most recent fantasy reading content creators. So to shout out some booktubers, and because I have been getting so many new booktubers that I've been watching and enjoying, I thought about not shouting out anyone in the video particularly, so I will leave linked down below all of the content creators of fantasy that I really enjoy and that I really believe that have not the amount of subscribers that they deserve. So if you want to check them out, if you want to see if you know some of them, and if you want to just, I don't know, give them some love, do, because I really enjoy all of those creators and I really believe that they are really good at what they do, and they bring a lot of fantasy recommendations, even though if some of them read other things, they also read fantasy, and so I would say it will be pretty cool. So that's going to be all for this tag. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and happy readings to you all, and don't burn in the sun. It's really warm at the place where I'm at right now, so yeah. Bye!